Welcome back. We're live, pal. Andrew, I don't imagine we're going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the NBA draft lottery and who's going to get Victor Wembanyama. Based on your tweet, it seems
He's the
like we're going
French
to talk.
dude, right?
Yeah, he's a French, 7'3", shoots, dribbles, runs like a guard. He's the next big thing in the NBA. But based on your tweet, which all of a sudden my notifications kind of went haywire there. It sounds like you have some information on one CM Punk and when any kind of announcement about his return is going to take place. So I'll let you take this one.
I can't believe we're still talking about this man. It's unbelievable. You know what?
Who's his publicist? Jesus.
God, you know what? I whoever that publicist is needs an award. It just sometimes speaks volume regarding the interest in a talent. And I can't remember the last time I spent this much time, or any of us, in pro wrestling media, in sports media, even Twitter, people on Twitter in the chat room, talking about one individual and what he's planning on doing. Because I think a lot of people realize the importance of Punk here, right? I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think his exit, regardless of what side you want to be on here, it was a really totally unprofessional and crappy scenario for everybody involved, top to bottom. So, it's interesting. I mean, the whole exit was interesting. This impending return is even more interesting to me than how he left, because how they put this together, I would love to know the story. I don't know if we'll ever get a true, a true, honest version of this. Not that anybody's going to lie, but I think a lot of people are just not going to say what they want to say. But as far as I know, CM Punk's return will be announced most likely tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then very, very soon, within the coming days. And this is big.
You're thinking this is going to be part of what Tony teased last week when he made the announcement to create the announcement for this week. Is that going to be part of what he's talking about?
I don't know how they'll do it. I have no clue. And even if I did, I really don't feel comfortable spoiling it for people. I like to talk about stuff like this, but I don't like ruining what we see on TV. So even if I knew, I wouldn't say, but I really have no clue how they'll present this. I do. They kind of have to announce it. They even if they didn't want to, because think about it, you got 1 month to sell out the United Center on a Saturday, right? Yeah. You got 1 month. This is potentially one of the biggest moments for that company's history. You're getting another 2 hours prime time. This is not like how Rampage was positioned. Rampage, I know they tried to make it work. Rampage was a compromise of a show. Tony, they wanted another hour, and this was a compromise. If it wasn't a compromise, then they would not have put it on at 10 p.m. on a Friday. They tried something. You know what? For the time slot it's in, non-preempted, to do 500,000 viewers or so, whatever they're in, it's not bad. I know we like to say it's terrible, but it's not a terrible number for the time slot and for what it is. So they need another product, right? Warner is very embedded in the AEW content. How Punk got involved, I don't know if Punk came before Collision or after. If I were to go based on what I know, I would say Punk came after, and Collision kind of spun into something different than it was supposed to be. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. I'm just going based on information that I have that I could just assume. So putting this together, I've been really on top of this story. I've told Garrett, and I have spoken so many times off the air, and this was one of those things that kind of fell into my lap, and I wanted to commit to it and provide as much information as I can to you guys. And from all accounts, it looks like it's probably tomorrow. Now, whether or not it's part of Tony's announcement, I mean, what I can see them doing is, what are they calling it? Somebody reported that it's going to be called what? The Second Coming?
Yes.
Did you see that?
Well, I mean, Christ
Jericho. It wasn't in the Observer? Okay, so I mean, the Christ Jericho name is perfect, right? What a great name. But you know what? Imagine if that sheet is right, and that's how they start. They talk about the second coming, and here comes Jericho with his hands out doing the Y2J thing. It
That's
can
amazing.
happen. They're going to kind of have to be forced to announce it, but you could just put up a graphic, say, the second coming, United Center, and you could do something to symbolize Punk. Something. You don't have to show him, and everybody's going to know, and you'll sell out that building, or hopefully for them. You know what? You could
Yeah.
put up a muffin. Thank you, John. That is the key. Just a muffin in the background, and you put up the second coming at the United Center. It's exciting stuff for sure, right? Super exciting stuff, but there's more to it, right? We got Punk, we got Collision. By all accounts, I think the deal is done.
Yeah, this TV
the
deal.
new deal
So,
is.
I want to save the TV deal thing for a little while because I think there's a lot of questions that people are going to have about this Punk thing. Because if we remember, the first time he came through, they didn't just announce it. Tony Khan didn't just say, "Hey guys, CM Punk is here," and they put a show. They did the Rampage show, sold the tickets to that building. They left teases. They allowed the wrestling ecosystem with the reporters and the bloggers and the Twitter universe to just create this crazy expectation for what we were all pretty much 99% sure it was going to be about Punk. But they created this hysteria around it to make that Rampage number. Remember that Friday Rampage number? It did insane, right?
It was over 1 million. I was at SummerSlam. I watched it in my hotel.
So that is why when I asked, is he just going to announce it on TV? It doesn't seem like that's his style on announcements like this. He likes to create awareness. He likes to get people tweeting. He likes to get people writing. He gets to he likes to get people speculating. He gives us content. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tony Khan, for giving us content to talk about every week. So I can't imagine he just comes on TV tomorrow and says, "Hey guys, CM Punk is coming back." There's got to be some creative way that they're thinking about doing this, right?
I would expect them to do something creative, but I also think they need to be a little bit more blatant with announcing things. These numbers for Double or Nothing don't look good. They're under 6,000. They're probably over they're under 7,000. They're probably over now from this morning to now. They just need a couple more tickets sold. But, you don't have a real card announced. People really don't know. It's just you're a week out and we don't have the pay-per-view and you've only sold 7,000 tickets. You cannot have that happen for CM Punk's return. I don't expect it to, but you really maybe should be a little bit more blatant with the wink and the nod here.
You make a great point about Double or Nothing, and I was starting to feel like this last week. We know that the All In show in London, there's so much great news, there's so much excitement about that, and there's that's still so far away, but selling the tickets and everything. So that's a major event. Then you even have the Forbidden Door show that sold out almost immediately, and that show feels big. We have this CM Punk show, Collision around CM Punk that is coming. This first date that you're mentioning that they still have to sell tickets to. That Double or Nothing feels like fifth place in the importance hierarchy of what's going on with the company. And this is a pay-per-view that they're trying to sell tickets to, and obviously they'll do a good buy rate because the AEW audience is very loyal when it comes to these pay-per-views. But doesn't it feel like Double or Nothing is a little bit of overshadowed by everything else that's going on right now?
Yeah, and I think some of it, these ticket sales, if I'm going to assess this, right, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to look at the P&Ls and this is stuff that you do, Garrett. This is all big time corporate business guy stuff. If I'm going to look at this, I'm not going to put all the blame on AEW. I think some of it is obviously on the fact that we don't have a card that people really want to travel for. This is Memorial Day weekend. It's a busy weekend. We know how this weekend is in Vegas. I also think a lot of people are turned off to having it during the holiday weekend in Vegas. I did not like being in Vegas during Memorial Day weekend. It was
busy.
It was very busy. It was very expensive. The vibe wasn't there for me. It was too much, and I think a lot of people felt that way. last year they came out as a big deal. You're in Vegas. People are touring. We're back. And they got the experience, and they don't want to go back to Vegas. So maybe Vegas is not the place for this pay-per-view every year. Maybe you could come back every couple years, but move it to another place that, travel might be a little bit more realistic for people.
Sure.
The other thing, I'm looking at this card. Like, I say this, and I don't want to come off like I'm knocking the talent, but I'm not invested in this Four Pillars match.
No, not at all.
I'm just not. And that's your main event. That's your big story here, right? The four future guys in the company.
It was actually booked backward to where the four-way match became the heel instead of the destination that the fans wanted. Based on everything I've heard, I think most people pretty much agree that if you had to pick one of the three, Darby's your best bet for a one-on-one match with MJF. And so when they brought it out in the beginning, and then you're leading to this four-way, it was almost like they start the program and it looks like a four-way, and everyone's like, oh, man, I don't want to see a four-way. And then Darby just stands out more than everybody else. And it's like, oh, maybe they want us to think it's going to be a four-way, but they're leading to one-on-one. And so then we believe that, and then we go back to the four-way, and the four-way is actually the heel of this whole thing, because we really want to see Darby and MJF. And I'm not speaking for everybody, obviously. Like, there's a lot of people who are interested in the four-way. But that whole thing I felt was set up to fail from the beginning, and you're putting three guys in. When you have three contenders, you really don't have any contenders to me. There's no standout A1, let's go, this is what the fans want. If there was one, that person would have been Darby. But the way that they booked it, it just seems like, oh, it's just three secondary characters who we're trying to make important, but they haven't done that in the build of this. So I completely agree with you. Now, what is your take on the Elite and the BCC? Is that doing it for you? Like, I believe that they are really counting on this match whenever the match happens. We just had a crazy steel cage match on Dynamite, which did a really good number for them.
There was a spot that stood out so much to me, and I don't know. I was a little disconnected last week. I was feeling terrible. I was not. Oh, WrestleTix just put out an update, by the way, on the ticket sales
of Double or Nothing.
Of All In, by the way. All in ticket sales.
Got it.
Yeah, very interesting.
So what is it?
I'm not going to ruin. I don't want to ruin his Patreon. I'm not going to do that. But it's sitting in
his secret post. It's not the public one. Got it.
I mean, it's close to the public one. It's very close. They've sold a couple tickets. That's about it. That there was one spot that I was like, holy moly, look great. When Kenny did the running knee into the cage and the cage fell.
Yeah.
The V trigger into the cage. And he hung himself over that cage. It looked so chaotic and not choreographed. It really stood out to me. And I thought those guys did a great job. It was fantastic. Fantastic match. It
was a hardcore cage match is what it was, right? Like, it was like weapons in the cage.
I don't like Kenny in those matches. I don't like seeing him in those matches. It doesn't
He loves it, though. It's a way for him to prove himself, right? As an all-around performer. He loves that.
Yeah, but, to go to the Elite versus they're changing their name soon, right?
The BCC or the Elite?
Yeah. No, the BCC.
I don't know. I mean, they have new merch with that name. I forget, what is it? Be Real, or there's like a new tagline on their t-shirts and their sweatshirts.
I think they should be that name makes no sense for them at this point, Regal's gone.
But what should we change it to? Let's change it right now. Let's send Moxley and Renee and those.
Yeah, why don't you text your pals? Text them. Yeah, let's give them some the dastardly dudes. You could do that. Bleed into the night. You could do that. You could come up with some nice creative names. But I want to see Kenny have a singles run, and we barely got that in AEW. We have barely gotten a legitimate Kenny Omega singles run in AEW, and I always wonder why. Listen, the dude was banged up. Maybe he has some still pre-existing injuries that he's still dealing with. He doesn't want to do it, but to me as a fan, you've taken this guy that everybody fell in love with. Pro wrestling changed because of Kenny Omega. I think a lot of people came back because of the Bullet Club and Kenny Omega, and that match was Okada changed a lot of people's perception on, long matches and storytelling within moves. And you gave him this comedic heel gimmick. You have teamed him up with his friends, and that's it. That's all. We've never seen the cleaner.
No, I agree with you. I think if there is one thing that they haven't done yet, it is give Kenny that really strong, whether you want to call it a babyface run or whatever, because when he was the champ, it was him and Don, and they were that, that group, that really fun group, but also little wacky for people's tastes, for the best wrestler. You just kind of want to see that New Japan character crossed over into today's AEW. I'm with you. I think he's the most unique possible big star. I mean, he's already a big star, but that character is the most unique character out there to be a world champion, or to see that run to the journey to the world title. I would love to see it, because I think he is above the rest when it comes to putting the total package together. Now, some people don't like his promos. I understand that. He's got a different style of promo. He doesn't come from WWE. But I would love to see exactly what you just said, because ultimately it's kind of like, you want the best wrestler to be the champion, right? Like, and he's the best wrestler, him and Danielson, probably, you could say. And then, he was even talking about Okada in a Sports Illustrated article I saw today, that, teaming up with Okada again. And, that Kota Ibushi's kind of out there waiting in the weeds for whenever he comes back. So there's so many things that I think you can do with Kenny Omega coming up. And I just hope, not to say that the Elite is, there's a fan base for the goofiness of that. And let's pull him away a little bit so we can really get that serious Kenny Omega babyface run for the title. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do something, and I think they will eventually. But it's a lot of trios in that company, and a lot of these guys like Malachi. Malachi should have a great singles run. Why is he not facing off against MJF? You have all these guys in these trios that they're stuck because they're in a trio, and that's the only time you see them on TV. And this second show maybe will alleviate a little bit of that.
Sure. And that could be a positive. That could be a giant positive for this show. Now, are you of the opinion that these two shows, Dynamite and Collision, should be tonally different? Because Dynamite moves, right? You can't like blink or you miss something on Dynamite. It just goes fast, fast, fast. They don't want anybody to change the channel. So there's just action, and there's quick cuts, and Excalibur's talking a million miles a minute. Do you want to see Collision like that? Or do you want to see Collision slightly different? Maybe a little slower, maybe a little bit more, maybe less high spot flying, a little bit more on the mat wrestling? Like, would you change the show to be different from AEW Dynamite?
Yeah, I think you need to, and I think they are. The Raw and SmackDown comparison has been brought up numerous times to me. I don't know what that means. I don't even know if people in W, if you were to compare the different, what's the difference between Raw and SmackDown? I don't know. I don't know how they could present it differently, because it's still the same talent and still the same guy running the company. But I know that they are going to intend on it looking. They are intending on it to be a different show. It's not going to be Dynamite Part 2. So whether or not it's like Raw and SmackDown or it's its own thing, but it is going to be a little different.
Now, I think there's going to be an education piece to this, because there is a certain subsection of AEW fans who look at this Collision and go, well, if it's just ex-WWE guys, or if the show's going to be more like WWE, I'm just going to stick to Dynamite. But there's another section of people who go, I don't know if I have 4 hours to watch two different shows. So if they're the same thing, if they're the same kind of show, then maybe I pick and choose which one I like better. So that's my reason to change it, to make it tonally different. Because if it's really good, then you just prioritize and you make sure that you have enough time to watch both shows. Dynamite has equity. That name, that brand has equity with this fan base. And so now you have to build up equity with this new show. One way to do it is to do Dynamite Part 2 and just say, oh, it's really just Dynamite, but we're just giving it a new name. That is one way to do it, except it can be where people go, oh, I just don't have the 4 hours. So if you make it good and you make it a little bit different, I think that could be super beneficial to them. And you know, for my, I've always, we said this last time, for my taste of wrestling, you know, a slowed down version, a little bit more CM Punk, FTR wrestling heavy show in that style is probably better to what I like. But that doesn't mean that I am the, you know, I'm every fan, right? Like every fan has their taste, and what Dynamite has done a great job of is they've given you all kinds of different styles of wrestling. Like if you're a lucha fan, you're going to get a lot of lucha. The indie style is heavy lucha based, and you have your big guys who do crazy stuff. And so you can change it. They've showed you that you can give a variety of wrestling and that fans will enjoy it because you're kind of bringing a bunch of these different styles together. So I think they can do that same thing with Collision, you know, to maybe change it up a little bit. And that's the thing that I'm most interested in seeing. I want to see how tonally different this show is because it is on Saturday. And I don't know what your weekends are like, dude, but you know, I often don't even really get to watch SmackDown sometimes until like Sunday morning, just because things are going on. So that'll be another thing for me is when can I watch this, and am I going to prioritize it and make sure that I get to it on Saturday, or is it going to be, oh yeah, you know, if I get to it Sunday night, then I'll get to it.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I have not heard any expectation to what the numbers should be for this show. Warner Media, I'm sure knows, you know, it's a difficult time slot. You know, so if they're getting 750,000 viewers per week, is that a success to them? I don't know. I don't know what their expectation is, but you know, it also changes if you incorporate a streaming aspect to this, because then what happens to your expectations? So if you're doing, let's say for Dynamite, for example, right? I'm not saying that there is a streaming deal coming. I don't. That has gotten so muddy with so many different people, you know, having an opinion on this where I don't know what's true anymore. I'm being told yes, I'm being told no, you know, depending on the day. So, but let's say there is one. How much does that impact by having, you know, next day rights or immediate rights, whatever it is? So Dynamite goes on and by within a couple hours, it's on, you know, the network, it's on Max or whatever. Does that change your expectation for live viewer numbers because now you're bringing them into your ecosystem and that's more valuable to you? If that's the case, I would imagine that Saturday expectation would be lower than what people expect in their minds, because you're now moving them. You're getting you're getting that hardcore group that's watching live. Plus, you're going to get next day your DVR plus 3 numbers, your DVR 7 numbers, your Max numbers, and now you're going to do your, you know, your PR math and say that 45 million people watched Rampage last night or whatever, you know, whatever nonsense number that you could put together. A lot of this is optics. I think a lot of it is going to come down to what are the conditions for this show to be on, and if streaming is a part of it. Because if streaming is not part of it, then yeah, you gotta bring in those live numbers to sell those ads.
So I know this is not every single Saturday, but I just looked at the Showbuzz numbers for last Saturday. The only Turner program that was in the top 50 was Rampage's terrible number, which was
for Saturday. Wow.
They were like 40. They were 46th for Saturday night. So, you know, I would have to do some more digging to actually see
the top 50.
What is on there, but there could be, you know, an opportunity for them to really show up in those ratings on that Saturday, which is going to be a heavy sports day, right? If you look at, even right now, you look at everything on Saturday that rated, the top 9 is ESPN. So you're talking about Sports Center, you're talking about UFC, you're talking about NHL playoffs, you're talking about boxing. And then at number 10 is On Patrol Live on Reels. Holding it up, man. Good job, On Patrol Live. And then there's more sports on USA. There's Premier League. Then there's more USA. Like, so it's just a bunch of sports. Even Fox Deportes has La Liga. Food Wars coming in at 19 on Adult Swim. So it looks like there is opportunity there, but it's just really a heavy sports competition there. So you said something really interesting about this streaming thing. And I think we talked about this last week. I've talked about it a couple different places, but when we see these numbers, and I saw Wade Keller posted something that some folks are running with. It didn't sound like he was reporting what that was. It sounded like he heard something and was just talking about that.
I don't think people read the article. I think what happened, somebody read a tweet of a tweet of a tweet and then it's like, well, Wade's verifying. And if you read the article, he's saying, it's realistic. It's possible.
Yeah. And this is what we said, which was, if there is a streaming component, I could see that number being, higher than 150 or higher than 100 or whatever the number that, a lot of people are throwing out there. I saw, Brian was saying it could be this and it could be that as well. But if you do add a streaming component, which has to do with their pay-per-view or maybe their library, that there is extra money coming into there from that side. And you could see them, go upwards of 200 million a year. But if there isn't, then I'm not sure those really big numbers that we're seeing are doable. But, I would love, and this is again, I'm not the consensus here because of the way that I watch things, but I'm a giant HBO fan. I love that service. It's going to become something different very soon. But if you tell me, yeah, here's your AEW content, I'm like, great. I want to go back and watch Dynamite #1, and then they say, oh, by the way, pay-per-views are going to be here, still $50, but here, you have to have Max to order it. Or, a different way is to say, yeah, it's in your subscription, you get to watch these shows. Like, that is a bonus for me no matter what, because I don't like the Bleacher Report app. I don't have the ability to order on pay-per-view anymore. So I'm very specific to how TV works for me, which is streaming, and that would be of importance to me. And it would make sure that my HBO Max subscription doesn't go away. I'm just gonna keep, just like my Peacock. The reason why I have Peacock, WWE shows every month, right? So that's if you want to keep getting that subscriber and you don't want to have those people fall off, it is a good way to get the wrestling fan to subscribe to HBO Max.
No, absolutely. I wouldn't be subscribed to Peacock if it wasn't for WWE. And there's plenty of me out there.
Yeah.
But you got to look at the technical aspect of this also. I don't know what HBO Max's or Max's capabilities are when it comes to live content. I know they tried it with a few soccer games.
Yeah.
Games or matches? Is it a match or is it a game?
I think it depends where you live.
I think it depends where you live. They had that, but again, there's no currency exchange to order a pay-per-view. It just streams out that. Like, I don't know the technical aspect of it. A lot of that is going to come into play, but I'm going to bring up an example here, okay? They aired the uncut version of the not the family, the final deletion, but it wasn't final. What do they call it?
Firm deletion.
The firm deletion, right? And they put a link to BR Live to watch it. Do you know if you went on the TV, you can't find that on Bleacher Report? Doesn't exist. So then, you know what ended up happening? They ended up having to put it on the AEW YouTube account.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it just, how do you go back and watch this? Nobody has a link. I couldn't watch it on my TV. I had to watch it on my phone or my laptop. These are all technical problems that come into play when you say things like, well, everything has to live on a Turner property. Well, okay, where? What are we doing? Where's Next Day Archives? 4 years in, these are and I'm sure Tony's asked the same things. These aren't so technologically inept people running these companies. Tony's in the tech game. He knows it.
Here's a question for you. Now we know that they stopped. I don't know if they've stopped already or if they're going to stop. No more Elevation and no more Dark, and those were exclusive to YouTube.
Yeah.
So does that lead you to believe that there's going to be a place for all of this the past and future content to exist? Like does it give you more credence to the idea, or does it give the idea more credence that there is going to be a home for stuff like this? Because if the focus is going away from YouTube, and really it sounds like clips and being the elite will stay on YouTube, but if the strategy is to move off of YouTube and to focus on Warner Brothers, Warner Media, does that lead you to believe that there's going to be a place in the future for all of this stuff to exist?
Well, there's a piece to this that we don't know, you know? Sorry, I'm getting messaged. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Is it
All right.
the dot? It's like,
yeah,
then it stops, and then you don't get a message.
Yeah. Are you recording a radio show right now? This person that's messaging me is very, very technically, savvy. And I said, yes. He goes, we'll message you when you are off the radio.
The radio.
So let's see. I'm on the radio. Maybe that's why they tell me things. Maybe they think I'm a radio man. There's a missing piece to this. So either maybe Tony realized he's not getting that max deal. So why am I filming this stuff and they're not making money off those shows. Why am I doing that? I could do something else that'll make me money, or they're going to be doing something else. It could be a positive and it could be a negative. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Very true.
You tend to do these extra shows. Obviously, you got to do something before you go live, to kind of liven up the crowd. So fine, that's one thing. I understand that. And you're taping and you're putting it out. You're building the archives of possible up-and-coming talent, right? You want to film everything. You never want to let anything go, because let's say whoever, I don't even know. Who's give me a guy that's on one of those shows.
I think Nick Nemeth.
Look, okay, you know what? I got one. Local New York wrestler, Anthony Gangone, right? Anthony Gangone was on one of those shows. Pulled that right out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You don't know. Maybe he's the next big star in 5 years. Something happens, he explodes. You want those. You want that tape. You want to have access to that. So that's one aspect. Two, you're building a tape library, and you want content. If you're trying to entice an HBO Max or whatever, that saying, I have 10,000 hours of live content that we got to put somewhere. That's part of the game also.
Yeah.
Or maybe he realized that this isn't happening. And he's like, okay, let's pull the plug in and we'll work on something else that's making us money, like a 2-hour Collision show.
Sure. Now, did you listen to the show that Dave and I did with Conan on Sunday night?
Yes, I listened to the entire thing. It's my morning tradition that I put you on. I was disappointed it was not on Saturday, because that's my morning tradition on Saturday.
I apologize. By the way, the hat is for watching on Viewer, the hat, University of Arizona. I was in Tucson because my youngest graduated from college. So that's why we couldn't do the show on Friday. But as long as Dave is available, I will be available this Friday to do it. So, okay. So one, I bring that up for 2 reasons. One, I think people listening to Conan want the name of Rampage to now just be called AEW Rampage, because that's how Conan pronounces Rampage. Rampage.
Listen, K-Dog can call it whatever he wants.
No, I love it. It popped me when I heard it, and a lot of people have reached out to me saying let's just change the name of the show. Secondly, he was talking about how you add this second show. Now Tony is booking 2 hours of Dynamite, 1 hour of Rampage, and now 2 hours of Collision. And so that's 5 hours of first run television each week. That is essentially what WWE does. Or actually, because NXT is a different part of the creative, right? So that is they do WWE's 5 hours.
They film Main Event.
Wait,
right?
What?
They got Main Event still on.
What? Where do you even watch Main Event?
Peacock? I think it's Peacock and International. I think it could be for International.
Okay, so whatever, but it's not like Triple H is going like, got to book Main Event, have some great stuff. Like that's not what that show is about. So that is a lot of stuff. Now we know Tony has added Will Washington, friend of the show, great guy, Will Washington. And so he's getting help in that aspect. But from what it sounds like, it sounds like he's still kind of the head man for, the head of creative. He's the one putting everything together. So Conan was saying how, he wishes Tony had some faith in some of his other people and that he could tell them, hey, you write Rampage, I'm going to focus on Dynamite, or maybe Pat Buck focus. I don't even know how it works exactly back there, and then he was saying Tony can be the head and give some responsibilities to other people to kind of lessen the load from him, because Conan said with his own history, there were times of burnout for him that was being overworked, and he just said it was not fun. And so in the back of my mind, Tony may just be a different beast altogether with how much he can do and how much he can process. But that is another thing that you think about is, by doing 5 hours, is that going to be harder? Is that going to, are they going to miss some things? Is it not going to be as good because it's 5 hours instead of 3? So that is also something to think about when it comes to this. Is CM Punk going to be given some opportunities to book Collision? Like, I don't know if that is true. People have said that they heard something like that, but I'm just wondering, can Tony add 2 more hours to his current workload and still be as successful? It's an operation. If they have these great operation processes in place, like that's what I do. My role in my company is I'm on an operations team. So it's really about process and, making sure that things are being created correctly and efficiently and stuff. So that's the thing. Can he do all of this the same way that he's doing it and then add 2 more hours of a first run television show?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Like, I actually, and I listened to the whole thing. The only, Conan knocked Will a little bit. I heard that a little,
He just doesn't, it just sounds like he doesn't know. And plus, look who his co-host
but again,
is.
I think a lot of, I can't say anything bad about anybody. I'm not saying anything bad about anybody. Listen, I don't judge people based on a character they play on a radio show. I'm very big on giving people an opportunity when you meet them in person or you talk to them in person, that when the cameras are not on, and that guy could still be a piece of crap or he could be a wonderful person.
But you're not booking Disco for Wrestling Observer Live now.
No, I'm not booking Disco for Wrestling Observer. I'm not. All right. Disco could do whatever he wants. He's done plenty in his career. I don't think people know what Will does. And yes. I don't even really know, and I'm not going to bombard the guy that just got hired at this place and keep asking him, like, what are your daily duties? You got to let the guy settle in and see what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are. I know what his strengths are.
Dave said he's got a seat at the big table, right? That was what Dave reported. He's got a seat at the big table.
He does have a seat at the big table. Now, I don't think he's sitting there with a pencil and he's writing. I don't think. Maybe he is. Maybe he is involved in some storylines. But at the end of the day, it's still Tony's decision making that's playing a part. And for Tony's case, Vince did the same thing too. You want people that will challenge you and at the same time be in line with your vision. That is the key to having any kind of positive employee. You want someone that's going to challenge you and bring new concepts to you and bring you new thoughts, but will also fall in line with what the end goal is here. Whether or not Will has it, I don't know. And I hope he does, and I hope he does tremendous. But, Sanjay is not the answer either to be writing TV. And maybe Pat Buck's not the answer either. You kind of put together your team of people and you see what falls in place. Now, we've gotten 3+ years of Tony Khan's vision of AEW.
Mm-hmm.
Once you bring in, again, I'm bringing up Will. I absolutely adore the guy. So I don't want to be misquoted here whatsoever. You bring in a guy like Will, you bring in, let's say, Pat Buck, you have Sanjay helping you, and whoever else is on that team. How different does that vision end up on TV? Does it change? Does it stay the same? I don't know. We don't have the answer there because we haven't seen it. We're going to see it more with the second show, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just holding back my opinion on this because I haven't seen any, I haven't seen a turn for the worst or turn for the better. It's been the same show. So I think it's a little unfair when people are like, well, Will Washington, what are his qualifications? What's anybody's qualification? Garrett could go and book, and he could be one of the greatest, most influential people in the business. You'll be like, oh my God, look at all these great ideas that he has. And you know what? In 3 years, he could burn out. And the same could happen to a guy like Jeff Jarrett that's been in the business for his entire life, and he has maybe 3 or 4 great, years of great ideas. And then what happens? And then you burn out. It could happen to anybody. I don't look at people and say, well, that guy's not qualified. Well, give him a chance. Let's see. Let's see how qualified the person is. Let's see how capable he is. And then we'll make our assessment and say, you know what? That guy did not work out. And that's happened before. Tons.
It seems like there's opportunity for some folks to shine with more hours of TV. I would imagine that the Collision show, there will be some influence, I imagine, from, someone like Punk, who he's going to be a star of the show. And we know historically in wrestling, a lot of the big stars have had influence into their program. So, and this is not me saying CM Punk has, he writes his own storylines. I'm just saying influence in general. He's got a great mind for it. Like, look at I'm sure he had a lot of influence in the program with MJF, which is fantastic. So,
and the talent has a lot of opinions too. So that plays a part.
You still have your EPs, who I'm sure Tony uses as a sounding board as well. So, it's a fascinating time. I'm so happy that you and I get to talk about this because, I always wondered, back in the day when I first started reading The Observer, I always used to go, man, Dave was kind of at the forefront of all of this. Like, he's like writing down all of this history as it's happening. It's like a living, The Observer is like a living episodic weekly document, right? Like, that's why it's so, just from a history standpoint. And this is kind of how we do it, right? We do these shows weekly, and we've been we've been doing, I don't know, show 60 or something like that with you and I. Some of those are with Denise, but it just is so fun to talk about this stuff as it's happening because it just gives you more perspective. And it's not to say that you and I are like right or wrong. Like, we're just giving our opinions. We're not saying mark this down. This is what's happening. And you've also gotten to break a lot of stuff, not only on this show, on Matman and on Twitter, but you are kind of in an interesting place too with the news, because obviously people tell you stuff, they trust you with it, and you've been great for this audience, and it's just a fascinating time. So, the addition of AEW, I know people were like, do we need more wrestling? And to me, it was always like, well, the reason why we need AEW is because it's going to push WWE. And it's not a one-to-one, right? Like, WWE, when AEW came out, WWE was still pretty terrible, but I think it's helped WWE, get focused creatively, at least. And now you have 2 products that I want to say that they're being embraced by their fans. Like, WWE fans are really into WWE right now. Yeah. And AEW fans are very into AEW. They're very protective of this brand. They hold it near and dear to their heart because they don't want it to go away. So what if this is just a fun? It was a fun time, and I did a little bit of reflecting, but I was thinking about, being able to do this is fun for me, and to do it with you, and to just talk about where we are in the industry.
Dude, you kidding me? This is so much fun. You know what my day job entails. This is Absolutely. A blast for me to do, and it's a like. Listen, man, we all talk crap and we all joke, and but this is a blessing for me. I'm so privileged to be part of this, and I don't take it for granted that I'm on the Wrestling Observer, and this is something I grew up reading and listening to, and now
And you can't say that, Andrew. You're a mark for Dave if you say that.
I'm a mark for Dave. You know what? I'll tell you something. If it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for IATA,
yeah,
I major pivotal things that affect my life today would not be happening. I wouldn't, and I'm telling you, this is crazy. I was talking to my wife about this the other night. If it wasn't for IATA, I would never have probably gone into podcasting. I would have never had the job that I have. I would have never met the people, the amazing people. I would have never been a part of Observer. So You know what? One stupid idea that I think it was, who was it? It was a guy from UFC that started it, right? Wasn't it Bob
Who
Meyerowitz?
started IATA?
If it wasn't for Bob Meyerowitz hemorrhaging millions of dollars, I would have never been doing this. So I think it's fascinating to me on how tuning into something, I wasn't even part of it. Like, I just listening to something catches your attention and it kind of changes the trajectory of your life. I love stuff like that, and I think it's such a privilege to be able to do this weekly, daily, whatever I'm doing, and have fun doing it. I think, we live in a very interesting time when it comes to content consumption. I remember the terrible time of having to be a tape trader and having to seek out tapes and, Born to Be Wired, ECW Born to Be Wired. It was one of the first things that I ordered on TV because I wanted to see that insane match between Terry Funk and Sabu. Now you're just a click away from everything. The entire history of this business is summed up, on YouTube, which is remarkable. So I think people take it for granted. I think people they get in what they like, and that's what everybody else should like. I think that's bonkers. There's so many different styles of wrestling. Like the Joshi stuff, I'm not into it. It's not my deal. But you know what? I know a lot of people that absolutely love it, and it's great for them. I'm not going to sit there and poo-poo on what they like.
Yeah.
Except some of that, like the hardcore stuff gets a little much. I'll tell you that. Like 80 fluorescent tubes and, Moxley showed up again. He left scissors on my desk, but that's okay. No,
it's funny.
It happens.
It's funny because I feel exactly the same way. And Jon Moxley is somebody who is so into grappling, and he trains with Josh Barnett, and he's such an MMA fan. So there's this blood sport style that Jon Moxley is very interested in continuing to improve in. And then there's this hardcore style that he absolutely loves, so much so that, he pretty much bleeds every other Dynamite. So it is funny how, you can do both, and he does both. I wonder which one he likes better, though. I imagine he likes the hardcore stuff better. He probably gets a little more, he gets a little more fired up with that style.
I find it interesting how much shit he gets, right, for the bleeding and the hardcore stuff. But Terry Funk, no one said that about him.
Well, yeah. I mean, Terry Funk wasn't bleeding on TV every week either. We're just in a different ecosystem for wrestling.
Because you didn't have the privilege to see him on TV every week. That's why.
Yeah.
It is a different ecosystem for sure.
And it's a
totally different
business.
ecosystem.
Different business.
Very different business.
And I mean, we just talked about why, because, AEW is about to make some good money for their TV program, which is, the benefit for wrestling is just every week. It's every week, consistent, predictable.
I'm not knocking the people that like hardcore wrestling. It's just, here's a great example, right? The AEW comes here. Grand Slam is here in September. I go every year.
Yep.
Literally my backyard. It takes me 7 minutes to get there. I contemplate, do I want to take my kids to it? Not because I think it's so heinous and, oh my gosh, Devon. Yeah, a little bit, but I don't want to. Do my kids need to see that? 6 and 7 years old, right? Probably not. I'm a little bit more like crazy with technology. Like, my kids don't have iPads. They don't have cell phones. Their TV's very restricted. Like, I want them to go dig in the yard. That's what they. I mean, literally, I don't like the sitting in front of a TV to shut your kids up as a concept. I know that sometimes you need to do it, but I have the energy to chase them around and not do that. I don't want to take them to see something violent, but I do take them to WWE, and I know, at least for the most part, I'm not going to get that. That plays a part also. So I think it really comes down to what is fitting for you at that moment. Do you like this kind of content today? If not, then maybe you might like it tomorrow, and that's fine. You could flip-flop. You could change. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we spent 50 minutes on this, and it's right up. It's right up both of our alleys too when it comes to what we're interested in. I think we have a super chat. Did
nice
producer John want Want to put that up there and we can answer the
Oh,
question?
look at him. The greatest producer of pro wrestling podcast, John Bubb.
Trust the Process 34. And this is for you, Andrew, so I'll read it.
Yeah, okay.
Dave and others have suggested Ospreay in the main event at Wembley and even to get put over. Would it be smart for AEW to have an outsider main event, the biggest event in their promotion's history?
So I don't think that should be the main event. And
what do you think should be?
And I'll tell you the reason why. I'm going to insult people if I say that this shouldn't be the main event for whatever reason I have. I just don't think that, if you are trying for growth, right? You're trying to grow your audience. Do you grow your audience by having a recognizable name, a big time name in that main event? Or do you grow it by putting on one of the greatest matches you could possibly put on?
So what would your suggestion be for that show? Kenny? Kenny and MJF?
Kenny and MJF. You got Punk in the mix. You could do something with Punk in the main event. I don't know.
The Elite. Well, I know.
Well, I mean, that is the match. That's the match.
Whether they can do it or
that's
not.
The match. But I'm right now going on the side of that is not happening. So I'm not even gonna put it in my universe. But there's a lot of other matches. For some odd reason, I'm leaning towards like, well, you got a world title. This show came out of nowhere, really, and it may interfere in your storytelling. Like, why not do like Sting and MJF in a Sting retirement match?
That's what Dave's
and
that's what he wants.
Yeah, has he? Okay, yeah, I heard him say that too. So I mean, I would love that. That's an attraction.
I should pull back. Not that what he wants, what he thinks would be a great for business.
Yeah,
I'll say it
right. You got Bill Goldberg's, whatever retirement tour. Unless you do, oh man, MJF and Goldberg versus Sting and Darby. Oh man, just
the new
MJF
Wardlow.
Annoying,
Goldberg, the new Wardlow.
MJF annoying the shit out of Goldberg. I'm so into it. That plays. I don't.
People are going to say, Andrew, it's the WWE fan in you who wants to see Goldberg.
But listen, man, I got to tell you, it's not what I want. It's about what everybody else wants. I don't think about my needs when I put something out like that. If I wanted my stuff, you know what I want in the main event? I want Suzuki and Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute. Okay, that's what I want to see. Nobody. It's a fraction of the audience that wants that.
So I want to mention why that question is out there, because I think there is a segment of folks who believe that if they main event Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay is not under an AEW contract, that it's not great for business. I very much understand that point of view. Personally, what match do I want to see? That's the match that I want to see for that show, just because their Tokyo Dome match was so fantastic, and I'm very interested in the next parts of that story. But this is why Tony Khan pays himself the big bucks, right? Because that is a decision that he's going to have to make. It is a risky decision to put a guy who is not in your company in the main event of a giant show. I don't know if it's the biggest show. I mean, from an attendance perspective, it is. But
they have to make it their biggest show. They have to make this the biggest show that they've ever done in every way. Presentation, talent,
but they
matches.
already sold the tickets. Why would they have to do that if they're not selling it on pay-per-view, which we don't know if they are or not? Maybe
65,000 people versus, possibly over 1 million, right? And how many of those million are new fans? How many people are going to channel surf and stop and say, "Wow, what is this?" If it is on a channel, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, but I think how they book the show, and Tony I'm sure Tony already knows what the vehicle is, but I think it's going to be based on where it is. Is it a free streaming show? Is it a television show? Is it like a cheap pay-per-view because they don't want to go $50 back-to-back weeks or every other week or whatever. So I think that will sort of determine because they already sold the tickets, and that fan base is going to be live for that show, whether or not you have that in the main event. But I'm going back to trust the process's point, which is there is a risk in putting Ospreay in there, especially because he's not on your team. But AEW has also said, hey, we have this thing called the Forbidden Door. We like the fact that our fans can embrace all these dream matchups. We want them to create their fantasy matches and, whatever, we'll try and deliver those. So that's also a point of it. But yeah, I completely understand where that's coming from. And I would love to see what Tony's, with his decision making in that comes. Does he go, yeah, he's not part of our team. I'm not going to put him in the main event. I'm not going to create this, storyline for New Japan. If he's not on. So yeah, I get that. So I would love to see it though, because that first match was amazing.
Yeah, I don't listen. I think that it's that match in the Tokyo Dome was unbelievable, and I'd love to see that over and over again. I just I'm thinking as far as marketing the show and growth of the product and attracting new eyeballs. What are you going to put on that show that's going to make people say, I need to watch this? Let's say it's free on BR, which is possible. It's a free show on BR Live. If you get 250,000 people to watch it, is that a success to you? If you get 500,000, is that a success? Because it's not a pay-per-view.
Right.
I think anything over 150,000 viewers if it's on BR is a decent number. Most likely they'll do way more if it's free. Actually, didn't they do some free content on there before?
Yeah, they had those 2 shows that they did. This was I think it was in the first year of the company, right? The one at the video around the video game. What was that show called? I forget the names of them.
Yeah,
I forget the names of those. Yeah, but they did a couple. I think didn't they do a Dustin and Cody tag team match as one of the main events of one of those shows? As far as I remember, people in the chat know.
Fight for the Fallen, was that?
Yeah, just wait for them to.
Someone knows. Yeah, someone will catch up. I can't remember, but I'm curious what those did. Because if it was free. They have optics. They have estimations. They know what they're doing. And we're gonna find out soon. I mean, you're running out of time for it. It was
Fighter
tomorrow. There you go.
Fighter Fest. There you go.
Maybe tomorrow.
Like the Jackson 5 once sang. Okay. Last, we have a minute and a half here. Dynamite on Wednesday. Chris Jericho against Roderick Strong in a Falls Count Anywhere match, where the Jericho Appreciation Society and Adam Cole are all banned from the building. I want to see a vignette of them banging on the door, going like, let us in. How come we can't come to work today? I want to see that vignette. And then we have the Outcasts against Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Shida. So that's a pretty big match for that storyline. Ricky Starks against Jay White. Should be a good match. Jack Perry, Jungle Boy against Roosh.
So what's on this pay-per-view? You're giving.
Yeah, I know.
I thought that match. Yeah.
Don Callis. He's going to explain to us, hopefully, why he turned on his good friend Kenny Omega, his family. Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara is facing TBA. What's that story? I don't remember who he's supposed to face, but it says he's facing against someone to be announced. And then a follow-up to Wednesday's huge AEW announcement. If I'm Tony Khan, I don't know. I may stretch that. Try it as the main event segment. See how many people stick around to watch. Sure, will people be watching in the last segment to wait for Tony Khan's announcement?
You know what they could do? They could do like a WWE thing where like Tony comes out and he's like, "Are you guys ready for the announcement?" And like the lighting set falls on him. And he's like flat on the floor. You never get the announcement. They could just drag this on week after week. Somebody is like like in the theater, the sandbags in theater, to hold the ropes up. Someone cuts it and falls on Tony. You could do all that for weeks. You could milk this announcement.
That'll be amazing.
You see what a great person I would be for creative. I would just do wacky.
You should be on the. You should be on the team right now.
I should be
right
writing.
Next
It would
to Will
just
Washington.
That's it. Well, I'm just booking, a Roadrunner antics, the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner antics the entire time.
Yeah. Cut to Andrew Zarian. So we bring in Hornswoggle, and
and guess what? He comes down on the main event, right? It's Kenny Omega, CM Punk, and all of a sudden, Hornswoggle lands in the middle of the ring with a parachute.
All right. Well, we better get out of here before Lance gets mad at us. Fun show. I love talking about this with you. Also, belated happy birthday. If you haven't said your happy birthdays to Andrew, do so.
My last year in my 30s.
So
this is it.
Have a great 39. Before Andrew, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.